Hi, this is Chico Resch. You are listening to the Let's Go Devils podcast on the Primetime Radio Network.
Happy Devils Sunday. This is Game Day Live, coming to you live from the Primetime Radio Studios in the bunker in an undisclosed location in beautiful New Jersey and Chicago, Illinois. From the Midwest, the master of disaster, the king of sting, Vinnie, Parise of pucksandpitchforks.com. Coming to you live on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Twitter Live, and Twitch on the Let's Go Devils Network as the Devils take on for Game 3 against the Tampa Bay Lightning in this mini tournament of sorts. Vinny, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. Lot of negativity for a team that has 95 points. Okay, and up until Tuesday of last week was on a really nice run. Now they're in a little bit of a slump. They've played only Florida teams. And those of you who've watched the NHL for the last 3 years know that both Florida teams are good. They've been great. They've been really great. And it's just one of those things. You're giving me a look here like I don't know what you're thinking. But this Devils team, they're slumping right now against these Florida teams. They got one more tonight against the Tampa Bay Lightning. What are your thoughts?
Vinny, you know that I respectfully disagree. There's no, gabbing, punching. There's no right or wrong answer, so I want to preface that. Yeah. I don't think it's really a slump. I mean, they didn't come out. I don't think the Devils – I think they came over from their win hangover from the Carolina Hurricanes on last Tuesday against the Tampa Bay Lightning. I thought they followed up very nicely against the Tampa Bay Lightning, gaining the point. Timo Meier breaking out 2 goals. I thought that was good. Kier Schmid, I thought, played very well. I thought that Vanacek didn't have his best game on Tuesday. And then last night, with the exception of 3 or 4 minutes, the Devils did have a 2-0 lead going into the third period. A young team, these are learning lessons. I wouldn't call it a slump. I would maybe call it a little funk, but not a slump. And I know it's a play on words, Vinny, but I think you're on the right track. I'm not saying you're wrong. But to me, a slump is more like, I don't know, nobody has any answers. Look, Kier Schmid played really well last night. You can't blame him on any of those 3 goals. Vanacek is playing tonight. Okay, and he is going to be the starting goaltender. And I've been saying that, hey, I think we should play Schmid. He's the number 1 goaltender. But if you think about it tonight with Vitek, he's had some rest. So that's Vitek in net. So it's not, I wasn't trying to be negative or try to call you out, Vinny. I just think it's more of a funk than a slump.
That's fair. And if it kind of all depends on what your definition of the word is. So, if your definition is losing 3 games in a row being a slump, then they're absolutely in a slump. If your definition of a slump is playing horribly and, why are you playing horribly, then they're not in a slump. I don't think they've played horribly. I hated a couple of the periods in the first game against the Lightning. I didn't love the second period of the second game against the Lightning. I didn't love the first half of the first period yesterday. And then there was that 2-minute stretch in the third period of the Florida game yesterday that I didn't love. But, those are good teams. Florida leads the NHL in shots for. They're always going to put a lot of rubber on whatever goaltender they face. And that was the case yesterday for Kier Schmid. He made a lot of saves. A lot of high danger chances and turned a lot of them away. And for as good of a team as Florida is, sometimes when you have a cumulative shot total like that, they're going to bury a couple. And when you got skill like Barkov and Verhaeghe and Tkachuk, there's a reason those guys are the names that they are. What they've done in the past is because of how good they are. And I'm not making any excuses for the Devils. If you have a 2-0 lead halfway through the third period, you should win the game. and they didn't. You should at least get a point.
It was bad penalties.
Yeah.
Select the Boy says, Florida isn't that good, though. Well, no, but as of late, they've been a quick strike offense.
They have been good in 2023.
Didn't they put 7 goals on the Montreal Canadiens? I know it's the Montreal Canadiens in the first period before the first TV timeout.
Yeah. One of the worst misconceptions in the NHL is that it's easy to beat bad teams. And it's discreditable, or it's not very credible to really give it to a bad team. But you look around the NHL in the last week or so, and the Arizona Coyotes can't stop winning. The Chicago Blackhawks can't stop picking up points. Anaheim is picking up a lot of points lately. Philly's been beating good teams. They almost took Carolina to the brink last night. And that's just, it's the NHL. These are 32 all-star teams of every other league in the world. And
that's true.
It's just so hard to get, and I hate when people discredit teams for doing certain things against certain teams, as if every big win you can only celebrate your big wins over Colorado, Vegas, Carolina, and whoever you think is good in the league, the Bruins. That's just not how it works. You have to be good against the great teams, and you should have a good record against the bad teams. Of course, that's how you be a 100-point team. But I don't buy any of that stuff. And Florida has been good. Florida, they're the 9th seed in the Eastern Conference right now. They'd love to be, and they'd love to be in a wild card spot. They've been really good recently. Their record since the calendar year has been outstanding. Tkachuk is one of the league's leading scorers since the calendar. He's one of the league's leading scorers in general, but since the calendar turned to 2023, he really turned it on. And in addition to being this high-powered offensive player, he has the ability to annoy people like Sam Wu and I to no end. Imagine how the players feel. It's one of those things. Florida is damn good, and if they get into the playoffs, the Bruins don't want to. They'd probably rather the Islanders make it than the Panthers, I would think, or Buffalo, a team they creamed 7-0 today. I don't know. Florida, they don't get enough credit, in my opinion, for.
I'll tell you what, they will be a dangerous 8th seed.
Yes.
I think Florida versus Boston in the first round, they will give Boston a run for their money. Only because they play with an attitude. And look, you allow Matthew Tkachuk down the middle to score the game-winning goal, basically uncontested, you're going to lose the game. Again, it was a 3 minute of lapsed judgment. Damon Severson, again, I'm not harping on Severson because his body of work in the last 2 months has been very good. But again, I said this on Devils After Dark that I thought that Severson was just trying to overextend himself and trying to do a little bit too much. I like the hit that he had, but too many men on the ice. Okay. I thought maybe, it's one of those things, bad luck. But that open ice hit that he had, what did he get? Interference on that play? That was unnecessary. There was no need for that. Like the fact that he wants to hit, but there's a right way of doing it and a wrong way of doing it. And it cost the Devils. I mean, a power play ensued both times. And I tweeted this out. I believe Damon. He will come back much better tonight. I hope I'm right. Otherwise, I'm going to get killed for it on Twitter. But Damon
Not
Severson
you.
Was me.
Yeah.
Oh, I get killed. I'll tell you, it's so funny because we were just talking about this beforehand. I could say the same exact thing that another Devils fan says, but I get criticized by these people. But it's the same people that would. But if another Devils fan say the same exact thing 2 hours later, it would be like an honest discussion and really good, and they would agree. It's the funniest thing. So anybody that goes on Twitter, because I've been going on Twitter recently, take everything with a grain of salt. Seriously.
It's not real life.
It's really not. It's all about being a keyboard warrior and one-upping each other for the one-liners. Am I correct on that, Vinny?
Well, because no one would go to American Whiskey for the Let's Go Devils podcast and say a single one of these things to your face.
No
doubt.
no. A matter of fact, I did have this one guy. I think his name was Bill. Another podcast. He actually came up to me, American Whiskey. I didn't know who he was. Introduced me, and okay, hey, thanks for coming out. Like, yeah, I knew that he was always a ball buster, but then he goes, hey, I just want to let you know, I was just kidding around online, blah, blah. I think it's really cool what you do, and blah, blah, that kind of thing. It's just mutual respect there, It's like, yeah, it's just like hockey. You can take the hits. I take the hits all the time.
Yeah, 100%.
And so do you, Vinny. But you handle it much better than I do.
I didn't always.
Really?
Oh, no. I used to let this stuff sit with me. Like,
really?
It used to really get – yeah. Oh, yeah. But I've learned that if, I've seen it through experience, like nobody would say any of this stuff to my face. I have never had somebody have the balls to come up to me and say something that they would say to me on Twitter directly to my face. Never. It has never happened. Yeah, and the day it does, I'll feel proven wrong, but
you know what?
It hasn't happened.
Well, yeah, because you do Chicago sports. Chicago is a pretty tough town. So you do know what you're talking about. I will say this though, because I'm kind of I don't want to make this about me, but I'm kind of in one of these special situations, so to speak. Like, you can't imagine the crap that Amanda Stein gets on Twitter, other people on Twitter, members of the media. They take a lot of crap from Devils fans, and a lot of it is just really just stupid, and it's not fair. But notice how the way they act is very professional, and how they handle it, even though a lot of these comments can be very hurtful and borderline or completely bullying, where, but folks like that have bosses. The problem with the Let's Go Devils podcast is we don't have bosses. So sometimes when I gibber back, answer back and all that kind of stuff, I still have to be careful. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, well, you know what? I bet you anything Amanda Stein would love to retaliate, but she's just too professional for that.
And anyone who hates on her is a clown.
Yeah.
Like, for her content at minimum, because she doesn't give an opinion ever. All she does is report facts. Yep. What she puts on Twitter is factual when it comes to the Devils. If you don't like that she also uses it for her like personal use every now and again, get off Twitter. That's what it's all about.
I would like to answer Phil Painter's question. He said, how did Amanda even get the job with New Jersey? She's a Habs fan. I actually know the whole backstory.
Yeah, I think I do too.
All right, so way back when, and I remember Amanda Stein when she was before it was TSN 690 AM in Montreal, it was the Team 990 AM station in Montreal. Amanda worked a lot of the weekend shifts, Sunday morning. She, broadcasting Habs hockey. Also, worked with in relation with now it's TSN with the Montreal Canadiens, and probably around 2017, Sarah Baker, who it was the Flyers beat reporter, and had a morning show with Jillian Mealy on, was it Comcast? I don't know what channel it is. Comcast, NBC, or whatever it was back in those days. Took a job offer from the New Jersey Devils to be director of content. And Amanda and Sarah Baker, who I have in high respect and regard, she's no longer doing this type of work, hired Amanda Stein, bringing her from Montreal to New Jersey. and the rest is history. I mean, you can imagine the risk that Amanda had to leave everything she knew, her hometown, and coming to New Jersey to do this job. And one of the first things she tweeted out, I remember, was Taylor Hammer pork roll, and she got an introduction because somebody told her to do it. And, the rest is history. So that's how she got the job. But, that's when you're a reporter, and Vinny, you know this, and we've had Julie Stewart Binks on the State of the Fan Address. You have to take your opportunities where you can get them. I mean, it's not easy. And if the Devils, look, I hate to say it, but if I had an opportunity to be a play-by-play announcer and the New York Rangers offer me a job, you take it. That's just the way it is. You have to put everything aside. I mean, think about Don LaGreca being a Devils fan and working for the New York Rangers, as a backup play-by-play guy. That's not easy.
I cover 7 teams for fansided.com. I would say the Chicago Cubs are probably the team I've written about the third most in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I hope they go 0-162 every single season.
Mm-hmm.
But it's your job. Like, it's just what you do.
Yeah.
Like, if the Dallas Stars called me tomorrow and said, "Hey, Vinny, we like your work. Why don't you come be our lead beat writer?" I'd be like, "I'm on my way, Mr. Dallas Stars." It would be no hesitation. So it doesn't matter. Like, you can learn to love the team you're getting paid to cover, but also you don't have to, like, she's allowed to root for the Habs when they're not playing the Devils.
Yeah. And truth be told, I had to cover the 2014 Stanley Cup Finals when the New York Rangers and the LA Kings were in it. And I went to Madison Square Garden. It was a short-lived series, but you have to be a professional, and it's not easy because a lot of fans say a lot of mean things, and you want to say something back, and it's very hard to just kind of like bite your tongue. But I just want sometimes I know we're going off tangent, Vinny. Obviously we are because the Devils are about to play the Tampa Bay Lightning. But sometimes we need to talk about this stuff because people don't realize what goes on behind the scenes, especially Steve Engel, because he thinks that Don LaGreca was a Rangers and Giants fan. No, Donnie Pucks is actually a New Jersey Devils fan. That's why his name was like in the running for the play-by-play guy, which eventually went to Bill Spaulding, who's done an outstanding job. Outstanding job. Outstanding job because, like, the first 5 broadcasts, I thought, okay, there's a lot of potential here. I can't wait till he gets in a groove. And now he's just, like, a fixture. I love Kanji. I love Doc. But, like, Spaulding is doing it his way. I love it when he says turn and burn. And he has some Spaulding-isms, with his call. I love it.
Yeah, he does a good job. He's just got to learn that Timo Meier's significantly bigger than Jack Hughes. That should be the tiebreaker when confusing them because their numbers look similar.
Yeah.
Like, he calls Timo Meier Jack Hughes at least once a game, or vice versa. They're 86 and 96, and 8 and 9 look like each other at a glance. But, like, Timo is like,
well, that tells you how fast Timo really is for a big guy.
Yeah,
because if you can't tell them apart, the numbers are already confusing, but sometimes just the body language, I can't even tell them apart at times.
Timo's shifty for a big guy.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. Good hands, good shot. All things Jack Hughes has, just a little bit a lot of bit smaller of a build.
Yeah, exactly. So the Tampa Bay Lightning, changing gears, Tampa Bay Lightning, this game, Vinny, is going to be, I think it's going to be more to the Devils than the Lightning right now because I like to see the Devils snap their funk that they're in before they play Minnesota on Tuesday. I like to see Vitek redeem himself, and I think he would like to as well for last Tuesday's performance, where I don't think he was on his A game whatsoever. The pressure's on. Schmid played very well against Tampa and on the brink of winning that game in a shootout. And then we know what happened with Florida. With again, you can't blame Schmid on that. But I think Vitek well rested. When we get to our predictions, I think he's going to do well tonight.
Yeah, I agree. And I was kind of intrigued by your comment about starting Akira back-to-back games. He faced a lot of rubber yesterday. It was a hard-working type of goaltending performance, win or lose. So I took myself back on that. I'm happy Vitek's in net tonight. Let Akira rest a little bit. Big week coming up following this game, regardless of the outcome. Yeah, I like it. Vitek.
Yeah, we got sound bites on this podcast now, especially at American Whiskey. I can't wait to play like my sound bites.
Yeah, absolutely. We need that VTech chant going strong.
And especially this one. Woo! That's always good as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Agreed.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Yeah, the Tampa Bay Lightning, they're good. I know we've talked about them a lot this week. It's not like there's much more that we're going to say. Like when you play them 3 times in 6 days, it's like a little playoff series. Like, you want me to tell you how good Stamkos is? What, you didn't see his amazing shot he had a couple days ago? Oh, you want to learn how good Braden Point is? You saw it the last 2 games. How about Brandon Hagel, one of the best depth forwards in the NHL, just scored his 25th of the season yesterday. Like, that's a third liner, 25 goals. That's where the Devils can be. Like, can we get a Hala or someone to score 25 goals a year? I believe they can. Can Boquist be a 20-goal man? Can you bump down Tatar and let him be the 20-goal guy on the third line if he sticks around after this year? Like Sharangovich, all sorts of interesting options. So that's the difference. Hopefully the depth isn't tested too much tonight, because I would like to see the big boys come out here firing in the first period. Jack Hughes, Nico Heischer's a goal away from 30. Big milestone in an NHL career to score your first career 30-goal season. There will be many more to follow. I believe there will be a couple 40s in there for him. He's that good of a sniper these days. The two-way game might take away from him, reaching anything higher than that. But, the big boys need to show up tonight. That's my synopsis.
Yeah, and I'm seeing some of the comments in social media pages. I see that on YouTube, Felix saying Blackwood has no playoff experience either. Well, it's actually kind of funny you say that, because I was thinking earlier today, with the 3 goaltenders, the amount of playoff experience, I think it also could help the Devils versus hurt the Devils, because you don't know in terms of film, scouting, studying, goalies' tendencies. Sometimes when you throw in a rookie goaltender there, you don't know how a veteran team would react, because there's not much data on that goaltender. So and some goalies just rise to the occasions, because the bigger the game, the bigger the save. Some goalies are like that. So you really don't know. It's kind of like a coin toss in some respects.
Absolutely. Look at what happened a week ago today. Vitek Vanacek looked like the Vitek Vanacek that helped them go on a 13-game winning streak. Yeah. So if they can get more of that tonight, I think there's a chance that, they finally get a win this week and get at least, getting 2 points out of this road trip, I think would be good. I would have preferred 3 or 4, obviously, but, this week hasn't gone exactly how we thought it would, but these are really hard games in a really hard time of year. This Devils team is way ahead of schedule. If you told me they got 95 points on the season in October, I would have been thrilled. I would have been so thrilled. And now people are like getting all up in arms because they're not like the clear Stanley Cup favorite in the East. like, that's not how hockey works. You don't just go from being one of the worst teams in the NHL, winning a draft lottery again last year. Because don't forget, the Devils won a draft lottery again last year. That's the third time in 5 years or whatever. You don't just go from that to winning the Stanley Cup. You just don't. You got to take your bumps, your bruises. You got to let Jack Hughes go through this, dog days of the season where the goals aren't as easy, where every shot he takes goes in.
Yeah.
And, Heischer's grinding in front of the net for
Every
goals. And
team goes through that process.
yeah.
Tampa,
How long was
Colorado.
Tampa good before they finally won? And then it was the COVID, the Disney, or the Mickey Mouse bubble championship. Then they came out and won it the next year and made all those people look dumb. And then they made it last year and really made it look dumb. But how many times did Colorado lose to, Nashville, or, lose to the Blues before they finally did it?
Yeah.
It does not. It's just not how it works.
Well, and even Stephen Engel's agreeing with me. He's saying that I'm starting to agree with Sam. 24-25 is our year. I've been saying 2025 for a very long time now. I think we're a year ahead of schedule getting to 2025, but that's good because you have an extra year of playoff experience. I've said this on the Woo Report, and I'll say it again. My expectations for the Devils, what would make me ecstatic, is how many games they actually play in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I hope they play, 4 rounds, seven games per series. I hope they play 28 games. The more games they play, the more experience they'll have, and it will suit well, especially when the pipeline is still flowing. There's going to be an interruption there because without a first-round pick, probably 2 first-round picks this year and next year, there's going to be a little interruption in 2026, 2027. But right now, that pipeline is flowing. I mean, look about the Big Ten title. Michigan winning the Big Ten title. And Luke Hughes, Seamus Casey, again, those picks matter. Draft picks matter, folks. They do. And when you trade them away for a trade for Timo Meier, again, we're not going to debate the Timo Meier trade. The fact of the matter is it does cost the Devils draft capital. What you do with the draft capital is another story. But assuming that the Devils are making great picks like they are, that's a lot to give up for Timo Meier. But then again, if you can get Timo Meier for $8 to $9 million a year long term, then it's well worth the draft capital. You're going to have to suffer the possible consequences of that pipeline interruption later in the decade when you don't have that person filling in for the guy that bolted because of salary cap issues, because your team's winning all the time, like what 100%. Tampa had. I mean, only Tampa can circumvent the cap like they did with the Kucherov injury and all that kind of crap. Doesn't really work that way. They just got lucky.
Yes, and Jack Hughes, Heischer, Bratt, even Meier, they're 26 or under.
Yeah.
And they're going to get this great regular season experience. It's been a wonderful season for all of them. And they're going to go into the postseason, and they might get smoked in the first round. But they're going to know what it's like to get smoked in the first round. Heischer already knows what it's like to get smoked in the first round, and I think that's good for him.
Yep.
And so does Bratt. But, Jack Hughes is learning right now what it's like to play hard hockey in March. He knows what it's like to play easy hockey in March. He knows what it's like to play easy hockey in November.
Yeah.
Jack Hughes, there's a reason you see the Crosbys, the McKinnons, McDavid, obviously. McDavid's a freak. He shouldn't even be mentioned in this conversation. But, it takes a second, and Jack Hughes has 81 points as the youngest player on this team, or tied with Dawson Mercer for the youngest player on this team. When they're 26, when Meier's 28 and Hughes is 24, and Heischer and Bratt are 25, 26, I mean, guys, this team's going to be sick. Luke will be 21, 22. I mean, Nemec 22, 23. This team's going to be awesome. Like, it gives me Colorado Avalanche vibes. They just got to go do it. Like, I'm not saying they're going to go win the cup. They might, They might not. Great teams never win the cup. Those San Jose teams never won a cup with Thornton and Marlowe and Pavelski and, Burns. There are a couple other big names I'm missing. Vlasic. Those teams were awesome. But they never won the cup. They were good enough to, but they didn't. You never want your team to become that, but they could. Yeah. And that's all I'll say.
101775 is asking. I think he's kidding around. Vinny, how would Bedard fit into the Devils?
Bedard would play first line left wing in October, or right wing in October. But they have no chance to get him.
The only way that they can get Bedard at this point is something bad's got to happen to him. Like something bad's going to have to happen to him where nobody, like he's untouchable, where it's in the worst way where nobody wants to touch him. Like it's got to be something bad, like, really catastrophic injury where, his career's over or something like that or, whatever, because the Devils don't have a draft pick right now.
Yeah.
Possibly in the next 2 seasons. I mean,
it is top 10 protected, but no.
Yeah, it's just not. It's not gonna. I mean,
it's got to be fun to think about.
Yeah, I mean, it's always fun to think. Like you
play on the top line with. I would put him on the top line with Hischier. I always get clowned for saying that. I still believe it for Meier, especially after watching it. I want the best offensive players, not named Hughes, to play that are wings, to play with Hischier because I think Hischier's better at being F2, if you will, like go to the front of the net, win puck battles, be the strong defensive presence. Like he's the epitome of like what Jonathan Taves was or what Patrice Bergeron was back in the heyday. Kopitar, Sean Couturier, Barkov, guys like that. I would love to see like a superstar winger play with Hischier, and that's why I'm Team Meier play. Jack Hughes doesn't need that. Me and you could flank Jack Hughes, and he'd have 100 points.
Yeah.
So,
although I will tell you something about Jack Hughes' game before we get to predictions, because now Ramona Rice has entered the chat room. Ramona Rice.
The chat.
Yes. In the playoffs, you know what I'd love to see? And this should amp up the rest of the New Jersey Devils. If Jack Hughes starts pushing and shoving and getting into somewhat of a scrum or a mini fight, that would get me fired up. I mean, 100%. You don't want to get him hurt, but, all hands are on deck. Like, everyone has to do their job. Everybody has to fight for every inch of the ice. And that's why I love the Stanley Cup playoffs. When you remember LeCavier and Iginla fighting, 2 captains fighting, Well, actually, LeCavier was an alternate captain, I believe, at the time. But, just 2 guys, 2 superstars. Didn't matter. They're fighting for every inch of the ice to gain that edge. That's what I love about playoff hockey. It doesn't matter who you are. As soon as you're on the ice, you're equal as everybody. You're only as good as your weakest link. But let's get to Sunday night predictions, Vinny, as we're running a little bit overtime here. What's your predictions for tonight?
I'm looking at the lines. My prediction for tonight is that I've been optimistic about this team all year long. They've been everything I've dreamed of and more. I had a hope that they'd be like in contention. I had a hope they'd be where Florida is. 3 points out on St. Patrick's Day. Would have loved it. Would have signed up for it any day of the week. But they're way better than that. Expectations are allowed to adjust. I'm not crapping on that. But it's the anger that I can't get behind and like the jumping off the wagon. Guys, they have 95 points. Let's go get a win. See some big games from the big boys. Devils 4-2.
I'm going to pull Price is Right scenario. I'm going to say 3-2 Devils. 3-2 Devils. I think it's going to be a tight game, although Felix says 3-1 Tampa. Reddy Schmetty says go Bolts. But I'm saying 3-2 Devils. I think the Devils will they have enough gas? We'll see what they're made of. And see if they can pull off a victory. Because, they play Minnesota on Tuesday at home. They're going to have a tough week. But Carolina's heart of their schedule, their strength of schedule in the next 2 weeks. This is where the Devils have to gain some ground. I mean, it was so disheartening to be so close. You went from sole possession of first place to being 3 points behind in a matter of an hour.
Yeah. Couple minutes.
Yeah.
The Flyers let Carolina tie it at 1959.93.
Yeah. The officiating didn't help as well. I mean,
it never does, though.
Calling the penalty that late in the game, it's like, okay, and
yeah.
And Ramona Rice says 3-2 Devils. So, Vinny, you should be shaking in your seat right there.
Anybody whose prediction that ends with Devils, I'm a fan of.
Oh, taking the diplomatic approach.
Absolutely.
I'm taking notes, Vinny. I'm taking notes.
Absolutely.
Maybe that's how we should act on Twitter.
That's how I do act on Twitter.
Yeah, I know. You do. I don't. I like to bust chops. But
that's
a lot of people don't understand sarcasm. That's the problem with Twitter.
100%.
There should be a sarcasm alert,
Absolutely.
But, all right, well, that's all for now. Devils After Dark. After the game, it's going to be a big crew. We got crew, Scotty, and myself on Devils After Dark after the game. Recapping the game that was. Vinny, thank you. Dropping the podcast in about 20 minutes. Till next time, let's go Devils.